remind me to hit the button because I'm not good at remembering to do that, as you can tell. Today's the last day of the week and the last day of the things that we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through the voting simulation handbook first because this is not a slideshow for the kids, although there is a slideshow called Rules of the Road that I will walk you through after we go through the voting simulation process of how do you set it up. Fran has done this a number of times. So Fran, when there is something that you are aware of that you've done differently, please jump in. And the other thing I'll tell you is that this is designed, or it was designed for New Jersey. So there are things in it that you would need to change for your own state, but nothing really radical. It would be I think, a pretty simple matter of going through and making sure like you have your state's registration form or whatever it is, the vote by mail ballot and that sort of thing. So you get to this, and this is mostly for Colleen because the rest of the group knows it already. I'm doing the share option and I'm remembering to hit the share sound and optimize for video sharing. We're going to our website, which is energizingyoungvoters.com, and we're going to the community educators and community page, which is the second page that's there, and scrolling down. And you'll see the list of all of the different lessons that we offer, and module 4 on the voting side is the voting simulation. Brief description. And you can see that there's a module there. There's a training sim video, and then there is an example. But I'm going to go right to the module. When you get to that, you're going to see that there's this is just for your information. These are some of the things that Circle has found. Circle is from Tufts University, Colleen, and they specifically focus on youth voter turnout. So these are some of the things that they found relative to youth influence them in making good decisions around voting. We're going to go to the voting simulation file first, and there is a folder with materials. Some of these I'll go over while we're walking through the actual handbook that's there. But I want you to know that there's also templates there for press releases before and after the simulation, so you don't have to make it up from scratch. And sometimes we've found that there's some downtime for the kids. So we also have collected a number of word searches that we can hand them as they leave the voting booth, or when they're sitting around waiting to start, so that it keeps them occupied. So those things are there for you already. I mentioned all through the week exit tickets. We have a template, and there are 3 of these forms on each sheet, and all you do is explain that you want them to say something that what has made a difference to you personally, what did you think before you walked into this lesson today, and what do you think now? And then you collect them and you organize them afterwards to give you some feedback on what's going on. And then this is the form that I've used for the voting simulation to try to organize that information, because these are the things that kids will usually respond that they've gotten something from. The biggest group always talks about how difficult it was, how difficult they thought it was, and how easy they now know it is. But you can see that there are some other things that were concerns of theirs before they walked in that they now have had those concerns reduced. Okay, going back. If these are older forms for us, some boards of election will allow schools or organizations to create their own ballot. And so I've just grouped together here the ones where that happened. Many other boards of elections have a standard educational ballot. Here in Monmouth County, where I am, they have two different educational ballots. The one that I've used most often, because there are only three choices on it, so it goes more quickly, asks kids to vote for their favorite baseball team. They have to vote for Yankees, Mets, or Phillies. And then at the end, we immediately get the results and we can give them, what the outcome was of their vote. If you have a big, long, complicated ballot like this one, where there were even public questions, it's going to take a whole lot longer for the kids to do the voting, and you have to plan that time into the time that you have for the kids to actually be in front of you. But that's an administrative thing. Okay, so here is the actual handbook that we've developed. And before we get into it, I want to show you two short videos of two of the voting simulations that have taken place. In these cases, the school had a comms department that actually made the video for us. So here's the first one.
Like this.
So the simulation, we actually brought in two voting machines from the Middlesex County Board of Elections, and the senior students in their health classes are first getting a presentation by our Rho Kappa board members. The presentation goes over some of the logistics about voting, how to register, how to actually vote, the different ways to vote, so that they have that knowledge so that they can be prepared for the upcoming elections.
Well, I feel like it's definitely given me a more real life experience on what to expect when going to the voting booth. And I feel it also informed me. Like, for example, I didn't know that I could register for voting before the age of 18, which is very interesting. And I think that it's an important process to do. And I just think that it could positively impact students like me who don't really have a sense of what voting really is.
So I think the simulation is important because it is going to ease some of the anxieties around first-time voting. One of the things that we want to do is try to increase youth voter turnout. And if it's your first time to vote and you're uneasy about what the whole process is, then you're going to be less likely to actually turn up. So you might be registered. Doesn't matter if you're registered, you actually have to turn up to vote.
Okay, so that was in Central Jersey in a very diverse community, relatively upper middle class. And then there's Nooner High School, which is another one. that gives you a sense of what it looks like in person. It's really, really exciting. You can tell from the kids' faces and stuff, and from what the teachers are saying too. Every one of them looks slightly different because every context is different, but they all generally do the same thing. And you might say, all right, how in the world do you organize something that complex? You give yourself some time to do it. You don't try to do it in a week, but it is all laid out for you in the handbook that we've created for you. So we've set out objectives ahead of time. And if you remember the other day, I said maybe it would be a good idea for us to also list materials. So here we've done that. And there are things that the League of Women Voters supplies. There are things that we ask from the County Board of Elections, and there are things that we ask the school to supply. You might need to, modify that based on your own, the school that you're working with or the community group that you're working with. For the person who's doing the organizing, it's really a good idea to create a shared folder that you and whoever the school organizer is and the contact person in the League of Women Voters and the County Board of Elections all have editing rights to. And one of the things that that was developed probably last year or the year before is a scope of work plan. And this is what's in the shared folder. So you fill in all of the stuff that's up at the top and you ask the school coordinator to, and you're going to put the directions in here yourself, but you ask the school coordinator to give you a schedule.
Okay.
What are the times that we start? What are the times that we end? Who's coming in when? And that gives us the opportunity to organize how many voting machines we need for one thing, and how many people are we going to need to have in order to make this run smoothly. The voting machine that I mentioned to you, the one where they only have 3 things that they can choose from, I set aside 1 minute per student to vote. So that is the most important part of this, but you've got to do other things around it. So once you know this information, you can start planning, how do I get everything else done? You want to know the number of students because you want to have enough of those exit tickets. And then there's just basic information that each person can fill in so that everybody is on the same page. The names and addresses of the people that you're going to be in contact with at the Board of Elections. And I found, Fran, I don't know if you have found this, but because I'm a poll worker and because I can set up the machines and run them, supervise the machines on my own, there are still times when I've needed somebody from the Board of Elections because an emergency came up, like the ballot box was full and it needed to be emptied before the next kid could vote. So having a phone number where you can have instant contact with somebody who can tell you how to fix that kind of thing, I found was really important. Did you have that, Fran, or not?
Well, my suggestion would be as each individual works along with their school contact to ask them, yeah, are we going to move forward with the simulation opportunity? But most importantly, they have to develop a rapport with their local Board of Elections.
Mm-hmm.
And then they need to find out what their rules and regulations are to identify how do we do this with you? Because here where I reside in Burlington County, they must be present with the machines at all times.
Yeah, it differs
so
from county here.
So no matter where you are across the United States, it's key to develop that rapport. And I've always educated them about what we're doing with voter simulations, so they get it. And then I've observed that they get excited about doing it because they're thrilled to be able to get more students and anybody comfortable with going to the polling locations and voting. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I have, I've also found that at the end of any one of these sessions, if there is a member of the Board of Elections there, the comments that I get are usually like every single student in the state should have this opportunity. So they see the value in what we do too.
Yeah. And I'll also say one more thing. A key question to ask the Board of Elections is, does do your machines have um, the ballots, the training ballots that built into the software? Because most of them do. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so you just
Yeah,
need to
that's the
find
kind of
out.
thing that I was just mentioning,
I'm
that,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the three questions that's on the one that our county sets aside for educational purposes. But then, if you go up here just a little bit, this was one of the schools that I worked with in one of the counties in the northwestern part of the state, where the Board of Elections not only created the ballot for them specifically for questions they wanted answers, but they also programmed every single student's name into the tablet. So when the students came in, they actually signed in the way they would normally sign in. We have an option when that's not possible, but that was a pretty amazing experience. It took a lot of work on the Board of Elections part. And I think that might have been a little bit discouraging to them after the fact, but it was wonderful to see what the kids were able to participate in. Okay, the next part of that planning sheet is just a very brief outline of what each person is going to do and when it's going to be done, so that the people in the school have a sense of how it's going to go. But for you, if you're the person who is planning it from the league, you can see that we've actually broken it down. 3 months ahead is ideal to be able to plan so that you can get everything done and not have to have any sweat about worrying if something is going to be missing. 2 months is okay. You can get it done, but you're going to be really busy. So you meet with the staff, you meet with a member of the local League of Women Voters, because you want to enlist they're the primary group. We are there to support them, but they're the group that you want to have continue this in the county or in the region that they work in. So we want them to take as much leadership as possible with our support. So you make sure that you meet with them and you develop that kind of rapport that will allow that to happen. You meet with the Board of Elections to arrange for the voting machine, and 3 months ahead is really good for that. There are a couple of things that you need to be aware of. In Monmouth County, and I think across the state of New Jersey, and Fran, you can correct me, there is a period when the voting machines are sequestered. So you can't request to use a voting machine 3 weeks before or 3 weeks after an election. With the advent of these specified machines for educational purposes, we have found in Monmouth County that we can ask for machines during that period of time, but they prefer that we don't, because they are so busy during that time that it really impacts on their ability to help us. So if you can find out if there is a period when they're sequestered, and then try not to have schools schedule their voting event during that time, it's great. Sometimes schools say, well, I want to do this before the general election. And my response is, this is good anytime. It doesn't have to be right before the election. We're trying to get kids to be lifelong voters. So doing it in January is just fine, because there'll be an election that's coming up after you do it. And then they'll be more apt to want to vote in that election. So there are some hints here about what to do in New Jersey. One of the things here is that most county boards of elections will deliver the machines to the school free of charge, but not all. Some county boards contract with a service to deliver the machines to towns when there is an election. They charge the towns, and so they charge the person who's organizing this voting simulation. Schools have what they call like a little petty cash fund that is available to pay for things that don't have to go through the business office. And we urge schools to use their petty cash funds to pay for that. If that's not possible, we turn to whatever the league is in that area to see if they have voter education funds or voter registration funds available, and if this might be an appropriate line item to put under there. If all else fails, in New Jersey, we tell people to contact us at Energizing Young Voters, and then we'll figure out how to get the money to pay for that transportation, because it's more important to have it happen than it is for us to worry about the $200 or the $250 that it might cost us to get the machines there. Our budget in Energizing Young Voters is really tight. We operate on about $6,000 a year, and all of that comes from individual donations. So if other states are going to do this, I would hope that you can plan some way to support schools that might want to do this if the schools themselves can't come up with the money for transportation. I will tell you that it has only happened to me once. There's one county in New Jersey where we had to pay. So I don't expect it to be an overwhelming burden to any league that might try to do this. Skipping on down, you need to find out from the Board of Election whether or not e-poll books will be available. Some boards of elections have training e-poll books, and they will bring them in, and the kids sign in as Mickey Mouse or Cinderella or something, you know, some Disney character. But it gives them the experience of signing in using the actual machine or tablet that they're going to use when they go to vote in person. In other places, when that's not available, I've purchased binders from Amazon, which have the clips at the left-hand side, the short end, and I've created paper forms on what is it, 8 by 14 inch paper that are similar to the poll book forms that we used to use, the paper books. And we set it up so we get the names of the kids beforehand, and the teacher will, or the whoever's supervising it at the school, will provide us with a typewritten list. And I cut up those little pieces and I use Scotch tape, and I actually tape them into the lines. Schools are sometimes very concerned about privacy, which they should be. And so they won't give us the entire kid's name. And in that case, we ask them to give us the first 3 letters of the last name and the first initial of the first name. And they're seldom, you know, once in a while you'll get 2 kids with the same combination of letters, and then we ask the teacher, if that happens, just give us an extra letter so that the kids can tell who's who. Like I said, the books are on Amazon. I think they're about $2 or $3 a piece, so it's not a big expense. Then coordinate with the school to determine who's going to do the actual presentation. And by that, I mean the rules of the road presentation. In the first video, you saw the Rho Kappa students in the high school meeting with kids in their health classes prior to dismissing them to go line up to vote in the voting machines. So the kids were teaching the kids using the slideshow and the script that we have available online. In other cases, the second example, you saw that the presentation was taking place at the same time that the kids were voting. That's fine too. The only thing is you have to worry about the noise level of the kids because they're so excited about the voting, their voices tend to rise. So if you can do it in a separate room, it's better. But that's something you need to arrange with the school itself. People have asked me about the size of the group that you can present to. And I think the ideal is 25 or 30 students, because in a small group, if kids have questions, for example, there was one student who came to me and said privately, I'm Mexican, can I vote? And I said, are you an American citizen? And he said, yes. Are you 18 years old? He said, yes. I said, then you can vote. And he said to me, but I'm Mexican. And I said, I recognize that. That's your heritage. But you just told me that you were an American citizen and that you were 18. And those are the only 2 requirements to vote, because clearly you're not incarcerated right now. You're standing in front of me. And that's the only other thing. So it took him a long time to straighten that out. But in a large group, he probably would never have come up to me afterwards to ask that question. The other, I have done it with large groups though. In Plainfield High School, we probably had 200 or 300 kids in the auditorium before they went to vote on the voting machines. And what I arranged with the school was to have a microphone, and two students, one in each aisle with the microphone, would go up to students in the audience who had questions about what went on during, questions related to the slideshow. And it worked. We didn't get any questions afterwards from the kids, though, nothing like what had happened in that small group. So it works both ways, but I would encourage you to try to do it in a small group. And I would really encourage you to try to have a student do the teaching, which is easy to do, and because it has more impact on the kids.
Can I add something?
Yeah,
Real quick?
sure.
At the college I was at, registering students, the second question is, are you a U.S. citizen? He put no. So I asked him, I said, did you make a mistake? He says, no, I'm not a citizen. He said, but don't they have special elections for people who aren't citizens? I said, not in the United States, but now that you're 18, you can become a citizen. How about you talk to your counselor and see how you can become one? So, because if you want to vote, we need you. He
That's
said,
great.
okay. And I can't vote now. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Annette, because in New Jersey also, and probably other states too, you can't file a registration form
No.
without serious penalties. So
Mm-mm.
you want to make sure, if you're going into a school where there would be serious consequences for the kids if they are not documented, you want to make sure that those forms don't get turned in.
Yeah.
It's difficult because there are privacy laws again, but I've enlisted the help of the principal in the one school where I was really concerned about it. And the principal took charge of taking the registration forms from the kids and making sure that there wasn't anybody in there that they knew was undocumented, and checking with some of the others to make sure that they knew whether or not they were documented, and then leaving it in their hands to make the decision, about whether or not it was okay to submit that form, because you have to tell them that there are consequences. You don't want them, especially in today's world,
No.
doing something that could get them in trouble.
In trouble. Yeah. Yeah.
You need to make sure that they understand that that is not okay. So thank you
Yeah.
for doing that, Annette. All right. The other thing I mentioned, that there were 2 press releases in that one folder. At this point in time, I would make sure that you understand who the person is in the school who handles their school communications, because sometimes you don't have to worry about it at all. They will handle everything. Other times you have to either ask somebody in the school or have a league person do the PR ahead of time. And then we also have one for post, and we have photographs that we include in that. We have a release form. Energizing Young Voters has a photo release form that you can use to be sure that you're not publishing the photo of a student who is not going, whose parents don't want their picture in the paper, kind of thing. So sometimes the school has that too. And most of the time, the school has it. So what I do with the teacher is to say, hey, would you please check ahead of time and find some students who have photo permissions, and then stage the photos after the event, so that you don't have to worry about getting it done during it, and you know that you're not going to have a problem with the photo permissions. Sean, you have your hand raised?
I do. Thank you, Pat. I really like the simulation activity. When I was still teaching, we did do a voting simulation prior to numerous different elections. And the first thing I'll say about that what the kids really like is it was ahead of an election. And we gathered up all the data of the results from the election that they had. And then when the real world election happened, then the results of the students' vote was posted so they could then see how they aligned with the real results in the real world. And more times than not, I can only remember in all the years that we were doing that at the high school I was teaching, that there was only one national election that did not align. The students actually voted more progressively than what the end result was. So, that is a fun activity kids really like, and they know it's real.
Yeah.
The other part, the downside of our activity when we did this is we were sort of just doing everything on our own. And it's funny, when you were chatting, I was making so many notes about reaching out, because we do have our league does have a good partnership with our county office of elections, and we have some common goals. And I'm thinking this would be wonderful. And then if we could really keep it mimicked to the most real way of doing it. And the idea of helping young people really know how to do a ballot is crucial, because in my past, I've done a thing with our county office of election. It's where you go in, it's like a 14-hour behind the scenes, seeing what happens before, during, and after an election. And when you do that, part of it is to view all these different spent ballots. And it was really interesting when we were going through a whole series of them. And I was looking at it from a teacher's lens. And I said to the county person that we need to do better work on helping people figure out how to mark a ballot, especially if the community has a number of people that this is not their place of origin. They've come, they're naturalized, and they're voting, because they still don't quite understand things like you don't have to mark every single thing on the ballot to have it count. You don't have to bubble the person's name that you're voting for and then write it again on the line below. These were consistent patterns.
Interesting.
That demonstrated people needed to understand how to mark a ballot. It's not, you don't have to mark everything, and you don't have to write the name.
That's one of the examples of something that is different in your state than it is in ours, because ours is now all electronic. So they don't have to do that writing. But I can see that there would still be places like where they wouldn't have to, they don't have to vote for every office, for example, that they would not know. And that could be discouraging, because if they don't know who's running for the office, they might not want to vote on that office and screw it up. So.
Yeah, and yes, California still, there's a lot of stuff that's being done electronically, but they still like to have the paper trail.
Well, we do have a paper trail.
Okay.
When that electronic ballot is cast, it creates for us a paper ballot that slides then into a storage box on the machine itself. There's a camera at the top of that takes a photograph of what the vote was as the ballot is going through. And then they have the electronic, like they use flash drive that is collecting it. So there are actually 3 ways in New Jersey that they can recheck the ballot counts.
Yeah, I think we have that. That's the way it works if you're voting in person. But in our county, I don't know what the state percentage is, but in our county, we're in the 90 percentiles of people voting by mail.
Wow. Okay. Things change, right? Yeah. You wouldn't have believed the furor in New Jersey during COVID when everybody had to vote by mail. And that's what started us with that student advocate toolkit, because we were working with kids. And kids were going homes, or, in their homes, and they had pods. And so they could help the adults who would be voting know how to do it. So anyway, that's off topic, right? And my comment was off topic. Yours was not. So, but let's go ahead. About 2 months ahead, you want to make sure that you've got league members who can support a voter registration drive with trained student volunteers. And we would strongly encourage you to go to the Civic Center, and that is the civiccenter.org, to help organize student-led voter registration events. Now, I don't know about your league, but our league used to put up a table and we'd sit at the table and we'd talk to a couple of kids who would walk by us, but it really wasn't hugely productive. We got to the point where in one school, we trained kids to help other kids complete the registration form with a league member there who would check them when they were done. But then we would send the kids with clipboards into the cafeteria to sit down at a table with their peers and help those who weren't registered yet to register. And then we discovered the Civic Center, which is, and the organization has packaged a way to help students design and carry out a voter registration drive on their own with the signature of one faculty member who will serve as the adult in the school who is responsible for what goes on. We had one student do that in her high school last year, and in 2 days at lunch, she registered 92 kids, whereas our usual numbers might be at best 30. So having the students do the organization is impressive. And at least up until the present time, if the students agreed to do this, they would get a $150 gift card as thanks for their effort. You could have up to 3 students in one school work together to do it, or a club in a school work together to organize the student voter registration drive led by the students. And the club or those 3 students would get a total of $450. So that was really motivating. It is so well laid out. They provide the kids with swag, with advertising things, with, I mean, it just makes it so easy. So go to their website and take a look at what they have to offer. We have another option that we've used here where there is a person in our league who has developed a relationship with a certain number of schools in our county, and she has trained students in that school to do the voter registration drive themselves. So that's pretty much the same, but it's not using the Civic Center and it's not having the advantage of all of the box of goodies and the swag and the payment at the end, not payment, but thank you card at the end for the work that they had done. I personally, and this is not in the handbook yet, but when I did this the first few times and we had the voter registration piece, we used to do it chronologically, I'll say that. So we would start in a school doing a voter registration event. We'd provide the teachers with a sample ballot for the questions that would be on the ballot when the kids went in to vote. And we would ask the teachers to explain what was on the ballot, show the kids what they could know by looking at it, that it was a good idea to make their decision ahead of time, and that it was similar to the vote by mail ballot, so that if they taught them to do one, it was pretty much the same for the other. And then we would have the voter registration event, the simulation, and we'd give them their stickers at the end and announce the results. Based on the exit tickets after the first couple of events that I ran, I switched the voter registration piece to after the voting simulation. And the reason that I did that was because of what the kids put in the exit tickets. And what I found by doing it afterwards is that the number of voter registrations increased dramatically. So you can do it either way, but I would recommend that you think about that when you're making your decision. So back to the actual process. A month ahead, it's just kind of making confirmation of everything that you have done up to that date. And making sure, especially about the photo releases, and that's all squared away, because that, gets busy in schools and sometimes that gets dropped from somebody's list of to-dos. 2 weeks before, again, it's a whole number of confirmations, making sure that everybody is on the same page, that you have all of the information that you need. And then I have found this to be absolutely fun, just totally mind blowing. There are a couple of things that many people don't understand about elections. And so we ask the teachers ahead of time to give us the names of two students who will not be traumatized if they're singled out during the voting simulation. And that would be two students per class. And it is okay to tell them that they're going to be singled out, but you have to ask them to keep it secret because it loses its impact if everybody knows this is going to happen. So one of those says vote by mail, and one of them says wrong district. So the kids all come in to vote. They go up to the table where they need to sign in. They get their ticket to go to the voting booth. No, they go up to the table to sign in, and those kids that have these index cards will hand one to the poll worker. And I should back up a little bit. We also train students in the school to be the poll workers that day. We do have an adult standing behind them, but that excites them about the possibility of being poll workers. And in New Jersey, you can be 16 years old and be a poll worker, and you get paid for that. And in New Jersey, because of that law that was passed 2 years ago, the kids can have a day of excused absence during the school year to do some kind of civic engagement, and being a poll worker counts. So they can actually take a day off from school to be a poll worker and get paid. What is it, Annette, $300 for the day? And that's a poll worker, and I can't remember what it is, but that's okay. At any rate, so that's an option for the kids. So if they get in there and they see that it's not all that hard to do, we don't tell them that they have to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning, but we do tell them there are donuts. And it's something that is usually very appealing to the kids, to realize that they can be a part of the civic life. And that's one of the other things that we want to do. So make sure that the schedule is still the same, that you're going to get the same number of students in the class that you thought you were going to get, so that you can move them through the space well. The other thing, when you're looking at space, you want to make sure that there are easy pathways that the kids can move from one thing to another. There have been times when I've been in a very crowded space, and so we had to move things like tables and bookshelves and that kind of thing to make it easier for the kids to move around. They need to have a place to go after they've finished voting, and that might be tables in the room, or it might be, it depends on where it is, of course. It might be seats in an auditorium, but they need to know ahead of time. You need to know ahead of time what that pathway is going to be and where they're going to be at the end of it. You will always make sure that the school knows that the teachers need to stay with the kids. That even if you are a certified teacher, you want the person who knows them to remain with them during this whole time. And I'll tell you why, because they'll learn as much as the kids will. So back to the kid who goes up to the poll worker and hands them a ticket that says vote by mail. So the poll workers know that at that point in time, they have to stop the presses. They stop, they say to the league members there, this person voted by mail, and I told them they can't vote again. And they're insisting that they want to vote because they didn't vote by mail. So we stop everything. Everybody needs to listen. And we say, what should this person do? He hasn't voted by mail. At least he says he hasn't. But the Board of Elections poll book has it that he got a vote by mail ballot. And nobody knows, not even the teachers usually. So we explain what a provisional ballot is and how it works in New Jersey. And we give the student a paper that is similar to what's in the voting machine, so that they can go over to a private spot and they can fill it out and they can put it in a sealed envelope, and then we have a bag that they can put it in. We give the kid then the opportunity to go back and use the voting machine too. So that's the one thing that's different. The second kid comes up with out of district. And again, the presses are stopped. And this time you say, so what should this person do? And this time you might get one hand raised that says, ask for a provisional ballot. And you then reaffirm that that's what they should do. The third thing we do, most schools have security officers. There's a law that was passed in New Jersey in 1981 that does not allow any police officer or security officer in uniform into the polling place. So we ask that security office to walk in and we kick them out. And the kids think it's hysterical. But they've also learned about electioneering. And we say not only can a police officer not come in because that could intimidate people that are inside, but also you, when you're there, you can't do anything to try to make somebody vote for the person that you want them to vote for. You can't wear a t-shirt. You can't wear a button. So if you're wearing a t-shirt that right now has something on it for a candidate, please turn it inside out. So things like that just make the whole activity much more fun for them. And they really walk out learning something important as well. So those are the kinds of things you want to make sure you've got in place a week ahead of time. You can hold a voter registration event then, or you can wait until after the simulation. And then just prior, you want to again verify whether who's going to teach the slideshow rules of the road. Is it going to be the kids? Do they have everything they need to do that with? Or does a league member need to come in to do it? Just how is it going to work so that you're sure that the kids get the information that is in that slideshow? You also want to check and make sure I go in loaded for bear. If I'm going to have to present that, I go in with my laptop, I go in with a flash drive, and I also email the program to the teacher because believe it or not, I had one instance at a college where all three failed and I had to do it from memory. So it is better to be over prepared than under prepared. On the day ahead here in Monmouth County, the voting machines are delivered and they have to be kept in a secure place. The school knows that ahead of time. And you want to make sure that the sample ballots are all printed if they haven't been discussed by the teacher. Because what we've done sometimes is while the kids are waiting to vote, we give them the sample ballot so that they can see what is going to be on the machine once they get into the voting machine, and they're prepared ahead with what they're going to vote for. That's really helpful when the school has made their own ballot. If the kids are looking at it right before they go in, they're going to make that decision, and it's going to be much more efficient as they go in and out. Okay. When you get there, like I said, you're going to arrange the polling place so that you've got good access to whatever it is and good pathways so they can get from one place to another. You also want to stop each class when they get to the entrance and set their expectations and explain the procedures to them. That has made such a difference in the kind of mayhem that I won't say mayhem, but the confusion that can exist when you do the event to having it run very, very smoothly. Once kids know what they're supposed to be doing, they're much more likely to do it the way you want them to do. So there are expectations here, which are the things that I set when I go in. And then this just talks about the poll workers and then the optional activities that are there. And then the day following, early on, there is a point in the planning where I say start collecting the names of everybody who helps. And that means in the school down to the janitors and the people in the office and the teachers, any aides who might be in there, and whoever the teacher is that is the key point person there is the person that I designate to collect that information for us. The same thing is true with the league. You want to make sure you have a chance to thank every single member who volunteered their time and effort. And the same thing is true with the Board of Elections. So you need one person in each of those organizations to delegate to collect the names. And you can have a thank you note prepared ahead of time and just send it out quickly. Email is fine. If you want to get really fancy, you can do it by paper, but email works fine. Just make sure that you say thank you. Send the photographs to the news, to the press if you're doing it yourself. If there's a school comms person, ask them what they're going to be able, what they're producing at the end of it, and to please share it with you. And if you are willing, we would like you to share it with us too. We have a newsletter that goes out 4 times a year. And in that newsletter, there is one section on national events. And that's the kind of thing that we love to promote too, because then other people in your state see what you did and they will contact you and try to do the same thing. So it's that spider web of getting the message out about what we can do. And then if you find something in here, you can, anytime you want to use one of our programs, when you go to the website, let's say you're going to open this one like I just did. All right. If you want that for yourself, don't ask us for editing rights. Instead, go to File, go to Make a Copy, name it for yourself. I'm just going to put an X there. And make a copy. When you do that, you can do any editing on that you want for yourself. We can't give you editing rights because if we do, whatever you put on that, if whatever changes you make appear on our website, which just confuses people terribly, including us. So, so please don't do that. All right, this is going to show up in a minute and I'm going to have to, there it is. So see, this comes from the website right now. So I need to take this off and trash it so that people just see the things that are from us. Okay, I did so much talking there and I know you were taking notes. So let's talk about whatever questions you might have based on that. And then Fran can jump in too with what she's done.
I'll jump in
Okay.
because this is the most fun thing to do with a school. And I've been very fortunate to collaborate with some of the most enthusiastic social studies people at high schools. They are awesome. And, the way I approach it with them is that I turn it into a partnership with them because they know their teachers, they know the climate of their school. They know how to talk to their librarian if you're using the media center. So making them your partner is an essential component because I always express that we can do our best to customize it to them, their day's schedule. Oftentimes, we only have the normal class 40 minutes. I'll share an example. I worked with one guy, Mr. Becker, and he worked with the phys ed department, and they brought the kids in during phys ed period. And they came in for 4 or 5 sessions. We had them for 40 minutes. He had already developed spreadsheets with all their names. And we had students sitting at the table. They were the poll workers, and the Board of Elections people were standing with the machines. And it was brilliant, just a brilliant, fun opportunity. And while some kids were in line to go into the machines, the other students were at the tables and they were completing either paper registration forms or online forms. And all your helpers were walking around, making sure that they were comfortable and confident with filling it out because we had to jam it into 40 minutes. So it is a vibrant, exciting, engaging activity, and they always turn out with the supervisor of social studies saying, "Wow!" And then the principal shows up, the superintendent shows up, and they're like, "Wow!" And the kids are in the hall saying, "Oh, this was awesome!" So I can't express to you how it's a joy to do
Yes,
this
it is.
activity. It is
It's
an
work.
absolute joy.
It's work, but it's a joy. We've
Yeah.
also had the gentleman who's the community relations person at the New Jersey Department of State come to observe what we've done. And we've developed a really good relationship with them now over lots of things. But that really was one of the key motivators for them to become engaged with us. Sean?
Thank you, Pat. I just want to validate everything Francis said. In my experience of doing it at a high school, it is the social science department that our school had always done it through, the history government teachers. And how we did it, that was a little on the same vein as Francis's description, is when it is a lot of work and it is a lot of planning on the part of the teachers, because you've got to get that fitted into schedules. And then, determining what kids are going to vote. So I don't think we included sophomores. It was juniors and seniors that were doing the voting. And then all the classes of teachers that were teaching that level were given the days that this was going to take place. And it was going to be going from first thing in the morning until after lunch. So what was going to be the best period for you to sign up, make your appointment? So there was a steady stream of young people constantly leaving classrooms at their appointed time for the polls. And then they would go to the polls, go through, do their voting, and then return to their classroom. So it was this constant flow. And then after the last classes voted is when the young people that were involved in the process, those were the seniors, government seniors, who were doing all the tallying and taking care of that backside of the election. So it is a lot of fun. The kids really do like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I come off it with a real high when I do it. So I would encourage you to do the same thing if you can. The other thing that I will tell you, the first video that you saw at Monroe Township High School, I did practically nothing. The high school social studies supervisor did it all using the handbook that we had on the website. We did connect her with the league in the area where Monroe Township High School is. And there were about 5 league volunteers there on the day of the simulation. But it can be done. So if you know people who are teachers, it doesn't have to be right in your area. You can encourage them as well to take a look at this to see if they want to get involved in something, and just encourage them. And we'll encourage them too. You can send them to us and we will give them the old hurrah, and explain how wonderful it is for the kids. Any other questions about the handbook or using it or having kids use it? I mean, teachers use it, not kids. Okay. Then the second piece of that, in both of those videos, you saw that there were the people using the rules of the road. Rules of the road is just really basic information about voting. And one of the things that's kind of an aside is that I've also used this with citizenship preparation classes. They found out that we had this and they said, would you come and teach us? And so every time they have a new class come up, we teach this rules of the road script. And we have now added a piece on the timeline of suffrage, which we did the very first day, so that they have a sense of the history of voting here and how it compares to voting in their own country. It is so much fun. And one of the things that just delights me to no end is that one of our ambassadors, who is a college sophomore now, has taken charge of running that program for us. He is bilingual, so that's very helpful. He gets somebody else in our league to work it with him, and he teaches this to the citizenship prep classes online. And this can be done very easily online. That complete version is available to you but it is not on the website. So if you're interested in using the whole thing, which would be the timeline of suffrage plus this rules of the road, you can be in touch with us and we'll send you the link to that. But it's the rules of the road that is really the most important part for them to have, I believe. Sure.
For those of us that have been educators or worked with students, we all know how we all learn. Okay. And one of the key, really, we can hear it, we can see it, but really it's kinesthetic. And when the kids actually we've had fabulous worksheets and all kinds of activities, but when they get to see a machine in their classroom, it's like, it's like,
Wow.
it's a wow. And our exit survey tickets have reflected, I can do this.
Hmm.
I'm not afraid anymore. And we have broken down their hesitations. And so it is such a rich learning experience. It is exquisite. So I hope you will try it if you haven't already. So that's all. Go ahead. Oh.
So back to the module 4, which you can get to from the website. The rules of the road is the slideshow that you saw kids and teachers using as a script, just like everything else. And Colleen, I'm doing this mostly for you. There's a script for each one of the slideshows that we have, with everything that's on there has been researched and checked to make sure that it's accurate for the state of New Jersey. So you can feel confident when you use that you're doing everything right. And here is the slideshow. Okay, so the first time someone goes to the polls, the experience can be a little scary. New places, new faces, new routines to learn. What we're going to be sharing with you today, we hope will reduce your anxiety around voting and help make it an exciting milestone in your life. We're going to take a few minutes to talk about what to expect. So we're going to answer the basic questions about voting: who, what, when, where, and how. During this presentation, there will be several illustrations of voting places called polling places, voting booths, and documents. Depending on your county or your state, these things might look a little different, but they all work the same way. So let's start with the basics. In New Jersey, who can vote? You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be at least 18 years old, but you can register to vote in New Jersey when you turn 17. You have to be a resident of the county that you're going to be voting in for 30 days before the election. And you cannot be serving a prison sentence for a felony. However, if your sentence is completed, even if you're on parole or even if you're on probation, you can still vote. You need to register again, but you can vote again. Not everybody knows this, so please help us get out the word. It's a new law that makes it easier for citizens in New Jersey to vote. So let's start with who. Who votes? Well, registered voters vote, but that's not all. Here's the complete answer. Registered voters who actually cast a ballot. An awful lot of registered voters stay home, and it's pretty large numbers. It's not enough just to register. You need to show up at the polls or you need to vote by mail. And the what? So what are we voting for? You vote for candidates for public office at the national level, at the state level, at the county level, and at the local level. And for us, also at the Board of Education level. Oops, sorry. At the national level, who do we vote for? And then you ask them, and usually they'll know the president and the vice president, but they don't know too much more than that. So you can fill in not only the president and vice president, but also we vote for senators and we vote for members of the House of Representatives. And I make the point that those are the people who make the laws. The president doesn't make the laws, but the president signs law. But those Congress people are the ones who actually make the laws. At the state level, who do we vote for? And you'll usually get governor, but they don't know anybody else. So in New Jersey, we have a lieutenant governor. So the governor selects the lieutenant governor, just like the president and the vice president, and they run for office. But we also have state senators. Those are different from the senators that go to Washington. The senators in the state help make laws that apply to New Jersey. And we also have state assembly people. Same thing. They make New Jersey laws for us. And they're different from the ones that go to Washington. And nobody knows who we vote for at the county level usually, but in New Jersey here, we vote for commissioners, we vote for a sheriff, we vote for a clerk, and we vote for a surrogate. And if it's the appropriate class, we might explain what each one of those do, but the important thing for them to walk away with is that they are electing people at each one of those offices. At the local level, who do you vote for in your town? For example, some people vote only for council people, and then the council people elect their own mayor. But in some cities, the mayor is also elected. And then at the Board of Education level, you're electing people who make the decisions about what happens, about the policies that take place in your school, that guide what happens in your school. Sometimes you're also asked to vote on something called a public question, where you get a chance to choose yes or no to a question. For example, in New Jersey, we recently had a question on the ballot of whether or not to legalize marijuana. And so people who went to vote could vote yes, they wanted marijuana legalized, or no, they did not. That's called a public question. They're not always on the ballot, but when they're on the ballot, it's important to know what it is about and to make your decision before you go in. So you want to do your research ahead of time. All right, when do we vote? And in New Jersey, we vote in June. We have primary elections in June, and we vote again in November for general elections. The November elections are when we actually select the people who are going to be our representatives. We also have some special elections. In some towns, we elect fire commissioners who lead the fire department. We elect Board of Education members at a different time than we do the general election. And there are other types of elections too in some towns. New in New Jersey in the last 2 years is that we now have early voting in New Jersey. So there is no longer just one day that you have to get to the polls if you're going to be voting in person. There is now a period of time of 9 or 10 days during the general election, and I think it's 6 days during the primary election. Where do you vote? On election day and during early voting, there are polling places set up in your town and your county where you will go to vote. This is often a school or a firehouse or a community center. If you're registered and you will be 18 by election day, you will receive a sample ballot in the mail telling you where to go to vote, what your polling place is. If you requested a vote by mail ballot, it's important to realize that you will not get a sample ballot then, because your vote by mail ballot is actually your ballot. So make sure you look for it. Sometimes it looks like a piece of junk mail because it's got all this fancy red, white, and blue stuff on it. So look for it. If you know you chose to vote by mail, make sure that you're looking for it. So how do I vote in New Jersey? Well, in New Jersey, you have a choice. You can vote in person at your polling place or by mail. Let's look at voting by mail first. Anyone who is registered to vote can vote by mail. You don't need a reason. To vote by mail, you send an application for a vote by mail ballot to the county.
Excuse me.
You will receive your paper ballot, which you fill out and deliver to the county office, either by mail, by using a drop box, or by hand before the polls close on election day. If you vote by mail, you cannot vote in person on election day. And that's because everybody only gets one vote. You can choose to vote by mail for one election or for all future elections. If you choose to vote by mail for all elections, you will automatically receive a vote by mail ballot until you change your preference. To change your preference, you must write to the County Board of Elections and request that you do not receive a vote by mail ballot. Then you will be able to vote at the polling place for the next election. Now, whoops, that's the sample ballot. I must have skipped that. But at any rate, it shows them where the polling place is that they go to, what they're going to be voting for, and it gives them some information about how they're going to be voting. And then linked to that are some sample ballots from Monmouth County here and from Monmouth County Votes, which is the Board of Elections website. So now we're going to look at the in-person option. If you choose to vote in person, a sample ballot like this one will be mailed to you 1 week before the election. It will have the where, the what, and the how on it. Getting a sample ballot is also proof that you're registered, but you can also check your registration status another way. You can go to newjerseyvotes.com or vote411. We've covered the big picture of voting, but now let's talk about what it's actually like to go to the polls and cast your vote. Has anyone ever gone to the polls with an older adult and you wait and see it? Has everybody been inside a voting booth? And most of them will not have been. If you were in charge of setting up voting, what would you worry about so you can be sure that the election is fair and accurate? And here's where you try to elicit that information from the kids. And once you run into a dead spot, you say the voting system has to have a way to guarantee that every voter is eligible to vote. Every voter is who they say they are. Every voter gets just one vote. Every voter can vote in secret. And every voter has their vote counted accurately. For in-person voting, how do election officials handle eligibility, ID validation, and determine that everybody has just one vote? Let's look at eligibility first. Eligibility means, do you meet the requirements to be able to vote? And here's how it works in New Jersey. When you arrive at the polls, you will see tables set up. The tables may be labeled by voting district or by alphabet. The number of your voting district will be on your sample ballot. Election poll workers will be sitting at the tables with electronic devices, which are connected directly to the state database of registered voters. And you can see that in the left-hand picture there. The poll worker will search for your name in the state database to verify that you're registered and that you have not already voted in this election and that you are in the correct polling place. And this is important. If you believe that you're registered but your name does not appear in the database, ask for a provisional ballot. The provisional ballot allows you to vote on paper on a special form that will be sealed and taken to the county for verification of your eligibility. And a personal note, my daughter moved to New Jersey from Maryland, and she registered in New Jersey in plenty of time to get to her name on the poll book. When she got to the polling place, her name was not there. She said to me, Mom, if you weren't my mother, I would not have known to ask for a provisional ballot. Now, poll workers are required to tell people that they can vote by provisional ballot, but sometimes they forget. So knowing it yourself is very valuable. All right. Then the next thing we need to be concerned about is ID validation. For those of you in other states, New Jersey does not require you to bring ID to the polling place. To check this, to check your eligibility, the validation, the poll worker will ask you to sign your name with a stylus on an electronic device. And then the poll worker will compare your signature to the one that you used when you first registered or when you changed your signature using a registration form. This step confirms that you are who you say you are, because when you registered in New Jersey, you had to provide either the last 4 digits of your social security number or your driver's license number. If it was the driver's license, your signature is compared to the one on the driver's license. And so when I'm working with kids, I tell them, look at your driver's license and see if that's your real signature, because sometimes they just kind of scribble. And if the signature, when they go into vote, does not match that, they may be turned away. So it's important to them to know that a signature is a real thing and that you have to be able to replicate it. If they can't, we have the voter registration form there, which has a box you can check to change your signature. And then they write the way that they know they're going to be able to duplicate when they get to the polling place. All right. Once you're signed in, you'll receive a long card with a barcode, which you will take to the voting booth. And that barcode identifies you by address, not by name. When you insert the card into the voting machine, your ballot will come up based on the information in the voter database, and your ballot, and only your ballot, will be displayed. So if there are 3 different voting districts there, they may each have a different ballot.
Pat?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? If somebody went to vote and their signature was not recognized, would they then be able to use a provisional ballot? I was thinking of when she was talking about Seabrook. Say somebody's signature is a little shaky as they age. Would they do a provisional ballot at that point?
My guess is yes, because there is a process in New Jersey also called curing your ballot. So if your signature doesn't match their voter records on a vote by mail ballot, they ask you to come in and to verify your signature. So my guess is that it would be the same if you voted by provisional ballot, that it would be the same process if the provisional ballot's signature didn't match the one in the state records.
Okay.
I should double check that, but I think I'm correct on that. And so the last thing that's on this list is just one vote. How do you determine that everybody who votes only does so one time? Well, the voter database will show whether you have already appeared at the polls to vote in this election. And it will also show if you applied for a vote by mail ballot. If you did vote by mail or receive a vote by mail ballot, even if you didn't use it, you will not be allowed to vote at the polls. If you believe that you did not vote by mail, but the registrar says you got a vote by mail ballot, you can vote by provisional ballot. After you sign that tablet, you will also sign a numbered ticket that you will take along with the ballot card to the voting booth. The poll worker at the voting booth keeps the tickets. The tickets allow the workers to confirm that the number of ballots cast equals the number of eligible voters who came through the check-in process. How do they handle privacy? Was your vote really a secret ballot? Well, the voting booths in New Jersey have a curtain that you pull closed when you enter, or have shields on the sides. Your voting booth may not look the same as the ones in these pictures, but they should all have a way for you to vote in secret. No one should know how you vote but you, unless you choose to tell them. To vote, you'll insert the long card you're given into the voting machine. Once inserted, the ballot for your town is displayed, and you will vote on a touch screen, after which you'll be prompted to confirm your choices. You will press a button that confirms those choices, and this will cast your vote. Your card will drop into a secure box in the voting machine, and this will create a paper trail for your vote. But your ballot cannot be traced back to you. This is what it looks like inside the voting machine. To vote, you will insert the card that you were given into the voting machine. Once inserted, the ballot for your town is displayed. Check to be sure the ballot is the right one for you. You will vote on the touch screen, after which you'll be prompted to confirm your choices. You will then press vote on the screen to confirm that your choices are yours, and you will cast your vote. The card will drop into a secure box in the voting machine, and this will create a paper trail for your vote. For in-person voting, how is your vote kept safe? So we're talking about security. Well, voting machines in New Jersey are not connected to any government office. The votes cannot be manipulated, because if someone tried to hack into New Jersey's voting machine, they would have to hack every single machine in the state. And if somehow something goes wrong, there is also that paper trail of your vote. For vote by mail, it's slightly different. Let's look at how election workers check for eligibility, ID validation, just one vote, and privacy. So eligibility, do you meet the requirements? Well, when you request a mail-in ballot, you will receive a packet in the mail. It contains a ballot, an envelope with an attached flap called certification, and a mailing envelope. To vote, you fill out the ballot selecting the candidates that you want to win. Then you fill out the certification flap information. It is really important not to detach the certification flap. Then you place the ballot in the envelope and place it inside another envelope, the mailing envelope, and mail it to the County Board of Elections, or drop it in a drop box which has been set up in town, or you can deliver it yourself to the County Board of Elections. When the ballot is received by the County Board of Elections, they open that outer envelope and take out the envelope that has the flap still attached. They then check your eligibility using the signature on that flap and make sure that you have only voted once. They then detach the flap to make sure there's no connection between your name and the ballot with your votes. And finally, they count the vote. Sometimes there are questions about the signature, and when that happens, the ballot is put aside until the Board of Elections checks to see if it's a valid ballot. The flap is not torn off until everything is checked. And then voters can cure, or that means fix, their ballots if there is a question about their signature. For vote by mail, how about security? Is your vote safe? Well, mail-in ballots can be returned in any of three secure ways. A secure drop box, which is under constant surveillance. U.S. mail, the ballot can be dropped into any U.S. mailbox. or be given to the postmaster in the U.S. Post Office, or delivered in person to the local county clerk's office by you or by someone called a bearer. That has to be someone who's older than 18, whom you've designated to be the carrier of your ballot. The bearer must sign the outer envelope of your ballot, and that signature and yours are proof that you asked that person to hand carry your ballot to the county clerk. A bearer may only carry 3 ballots in addition to their own to the county clerk. The League of Women Voters distributes Vote 411 cards to help people vote. The League is an old organization founded in 1920. We are nonpartisan, which means that we do not favor any political party or political candidate. Our aim is to educate and encourage all voters to participate in our democracy. You will find all the information you need about voting on this website, including a first-time voter checklist, and that website is vote411.org. The New Jersey Board of Elections also has a valuable website that has all the information you need about voting, including a separate page for young voters. And finally, if you need to be sure that you're getting accurate, unbiased information about state and local elections, you can check your source on one of the media bias charts. This transparent tool ranks print, TV, and podcast sources. They show you how biased, left-leaning or right-leaning a source is, and they also show you how accurate. That means ranging from reliable fact reporting to opinion to all the way down to inaccurate sources of information. Be sure you get the information that lets you vote with confidence from trustworthy sources. We hope that in the future that you will realize that voting is your voice, that is the way that you have an impact on the future of your country and the future in which you wish to live. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, and then I'm going to go back to this slide. You can see it would be relatively easy for a kid to actually present that to their peers as well. Okay, some of you have only been here for one day. Some of you have been here all week, but I have a link or a QR code that goes to a Google form. If you would be kind enough to take maybe 5 minutes to fill out that form before the end of the day today, like when I let you off the line, you're going to get out of school early today. So take 5 minutes, please, and fill out the form to give us some feedback on how we might be better in the future. And I want to really thank all of you for taking the time out of your lives to participate.
Thank you.
Between that and the young kids that we work with too, I have always said they're what gets me up in the morning, because they are the hope for the future, and there are so many of them. It's not just one or two. There are so many of them who are really passionate about what's going on in the world today and who really want to be engaged and to make a difference. They need the skills, and that's what it is that we're hoping to provide for them. And that's why we're staying as issue agnostic as we can, because it doesn't matter whether you live in a red state or a purple state or a blue state. Everybody needs these skills if this country is going to be reflective of its population.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good job.
Okay, and if that's it, if there are no more questions for the group, you get out of school at 3 o'clock today. It's Friday afternoon. You deserve a break. Or for us, it's Friday afternoon. It's 3 o'clock. For you, it's lunchtime.
Thank you again.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
All of you.
It's been fun.
Pat, you are awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Best of luck to everybody.
Same to you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.